G'day guys, how you going? Hope you're all having a fantastic evening. Tonight I'm going to be doing a review of a crime/thriller from Iceland, Icelandic language English subs, released in the year 2012, directed by Oscar Thor Axelsson, and this movie is called Black's Game. And the story to Black's Game is as follows. Based on a true story of violent gangsters in an underworld of drugs and organised crime, Black's Game is a shocking, full-throttle thriller. When Stebby, a student struggling through his final days of college, is arrested for a violent attack on a stranger, an old friend offers help. Stebby quickly finds himself dragged into a violent underworld, where his eagerness to impress means involvement in bank robberies and the world of ecstasy. As the body count rises and the stakes spiral out of control, he seeks to start a new life and looks for his chance to escape the violence once and for all. So Stebby is the main character. He is a young man with a very violent temper. Now he's going through college and he's nearly graduated, but his temper gets him in trouble one day when he assaults a stranger at a bar. Now Stebby's nickname is Stebby the Psycho, so although he's at college, he does have a very mean streak. So he's going to be facing charges for this assault, and he could go to prison, and that's the last thing he wants. So while he's at the courthouse, he meets up with his childhood friend Totty. Now Totty says that he can get Stebby the best lawyer that money can buy and get him off the charges if Stebby does Totty a favour. That favour means going to this house and recovering some drugs. So Stebby reluctantly accepts this offer and he does what is asked of him and he gets off the charges. But this is where he starts to become more involved with Totty, and him and Totty, they go into the world of ecstasy and bank robberies. So basically Stebby has now put his foot into the door of organised crime in Reykjavik, Iceland. And after a while, he starts to get further and further down, and it starts to get more and more violent. And when it gets more and more violent, he starts to kind of regret his decision to go into this world. So he's trying to look for a way out of it. So whether or not he succeeds in what he is looking for, that's something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on this movie. I'm going to make some comparisons between foreign gangster films and Hollywood gangster films. Now the obvious difference that I can see, the contrasting difference I can see between the two, is that Hollywood gangster films glamorize the life. Therefore, art imitates life, and a lot of people think that that's something to strive towards. Now, very, unintelligent people who can't really tell the difference between reality and what is on a movie. So, even gangsters here in Australia, I've heard stories that they watch Scarface and they just want to be like, the people of Scarface. So they're trying to emulate what they see on TV, but it just doesn't work. And it's really quite sad and pathetic. And it's also pretty funny that, grown people can watch a movie and they think to themselves, well, I want to live that lifestyle, so I'm going to get into crime. And then they get into crime and it's not as beautiful as Hollywood gangster films depict it. Now, yes, Hollywood gangster films can be brutal, but there's this overwhelming sense that gangsters are above the law. They have all the beautiful women, they have all the money, and it's just a glamorous lifestyle. And I feel that that is not very responsible filmmaking as far as entertainment is concerned. It's good, but as far as gangster life and glorifying that gangster life, I don't think it's quite right. And yes, I know that it is for entertainment purposes, but I like it better when you get films about gangsters that, portray them as they are, grubby little pests. And that's exactly what foreign cinema does. Now, one in particular is Nicholas Winding Refn's Pusher. Pusher just had that atmosphere that it was really claustrophobic, very uncomfortable, and it felt like you needed a shower afterwards. And I thought that Nicholas Winding Refn captured that sort of underworld perfectly. It's very grubby, all the characters involved are very ugly sort of people, and it feels real, and it feels like these people have no way out of their predicament, because, life isn't full of money in the gangster world, and that, some people act out of desperation, and that's exactly why I feel that The Pusher, or Pusher, from Nicholas Winding Refn is an absolute classic, because it just is overwhelming sense of realism. So I was hoping that that's what I'd get with this film as far as realism in the environment and the atmosphere is concerned, and that's exactly what I got with this one. I thought it's one of those films where you need a shower afterwards, because everything in the movie is ugly. Nothing's glorified. There are no bright colouring. It's all very dull and downbeat, and it kind of feels like these people have nowhere to go. Life is not very good, and although they could have money, it's still not buying them happiness. They still have a lot of problems, and that's what I loved about the movie the most. The fact that the director hasn't glorified the lifestyle, is not glamorizing anything, and it's showing you that going into crime, yes, it could mean easy money, but that's not necessarily going to make your life any better, if not, worse. So as far as cinematography is concerned, absolutely perfect. A very cold atmosphere. You know, it's a very cold sort of country as far as weather is concerned. But it's not only the coldness in the weather that you get, it's the coldness in the human beings that are on the screen. What I loved about it also was the fact that the main character isn't a hero. He's kind of an anti-hero. You get a lot of Hollywood films where you get the hero who starts off in a bad world and he wants to redeem himself and he becomes good and he's on the straight and narrow. So I like that kind of idea where even the worst souls can be redeemed. And so I feel that, you know, that does have a place in film. But what I also like and what also contributes to a lot more realism is when the main character is bad. And when he realizes the error of his ways, he just wants to get out of that lifestyle. But to the core, he's still a bad man. And that's what Stebby the Psycho is in this. Although he's the guy that you sympathise the most, he's never a good guy. So although he wants to get out of this violent world, it doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to be a good Samaritan. In this film, it's quite the opposite, because he's still, you know, in his core, he is still, you know, a very violent man. He's a very untrustworthy man. And the movie makes no real effort to get you to feel like he's a good guy. So it really is an anti-hero where you don't know who to follow because everyone's just as seedy as the other. And this is a case of sympathizing with the main character because he is the least sort of bad. So once again, that it doesn't sort of paint a guy trying to redeem himself. There's no redeemable quality to the film. The film just depicts really bad people doing really bad things to each other, and that's also, you know, what I really liked. Now, the pacing was okay. And the actual theatrics of the film are non-existent, once again, portraying a very realistic approach in that there are no classic gunfights. There is no sort of stunts. It's all very real, so it almost gives you the impression that you're a fly on the wall. This is a real-life documentary of gangsters doing their thing. As I said, nothing is glamorized, so there are no, you know, spectacular shootouts or spectacular explosions. Nothing spectacular, so it's just very cold, downbeat, boring, and it just feels like these guys are just waiting to die. And that is depressing, and at the same time it's fascinating because you don't see many films that show gangsters in this sort of light. As I said, foreign cinema seem to do it a hell of a lot better than Hollywood. Now, there are some Hollywood films that do it as far as not glamorizing anything, but I just feel that this really packs more of a punch. The violence is very, very hard-hitting. There is some pretty graphic sex scenes, and there's also a very disturbing male-on-male rape scene. I thought the villain, well, the guy who was worse than everybody else, was really, really creepy. I really liked that character. I thought he was very intimidating, and the things that this guy was capable of was just terrifying. So all of that contributed to a very memorable film. I thought the ending was absolutely fantastic. If not, the ending, right at the end, it was a little bit theatrical, but I thought it was a great way to cap off what was a very sort of unique sort of gangster film. As I said, it's not glamorizing anything, so if you've got a low attention span, I would stay away from it. The problem I had with the movie is that it probably would have benefited from a little bit more development in the characters. I thought that although you don't really sympathise with anyone because there's no real good guy, the relationship between Stebby and Totty could have been done a little bit better. Now, they were childhood friends, but you don't get the sense that they were childhood friends because they don't feel like they're just gelling together as well. So I thought a little bit more attention into the character relationship between Stebby and Toddy would have been a hell of a lot better because it would have given you an emotional response to these two. And it would have, you know, as I said, it would have further created the realism in sympathizing for bad guys because of what they used to have. But I thought that the friendship between those two wasn't developed as much as it should have been. So this should have been a character-driven gangster film because it lacks, you know, it deliberately goes against all of the, you know, action type of films as you know, gangster films. So instead of going for the action, he's decided to go for the character developments. And I thought that it would have given the film a little bit more of better pacing if that friendship was gelled together a lot more. Therefore, we could really, you know, feel sympathy for the characters who were caught in this really bad world. But having said that, that is only a very, very little criticism in what was a very impressive gangster film. If you like your gangster movies that are very hard-hitting, this is definitely for you. I don't know how it got an MA-15. I think this is worse as far as provocative material is concerned than a lot of R-18 films out there. But anyway, if you can see it, I would definitely say go out there and try Black's Game because it really impressed me. I thought it was very, very good filmmaking. So overall, I'm going to give this one 4 stars. Definitely comes recommended. Go and see it. Alright guys, that's my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies and I'll see you later. Bye.